My brothers and sisters, let us take a moment to be still, a moment to listen, not only with our ears, but with our hearts. How often do we find ourselves paralyzed by fear? Fear of tomorrow, fear of failure, fear of being forgotten, fear that we are not enough. But today, we are reminded of a different path, a quieter, stronger path, a path called faith. Faith does not shout. It whispers. It does not force. It invites. It does not promise a life without storms, but it promises a hand to hold as the winds blow. So let us walk not as those who tremble in the shadows, but as those who trust in the light, however small, however distant that light may seem. Let us reflect together. My dear brothers and sisters, let us return for a moment to that humble woman, the one who walks many streets each day, cleaning homes that are not her own, carrying a heart full of worries, but a voice full of song. Perhaps you have seen her in your own neighborhood. Perhaps she lives in your own story. She does not have many coins in her pocket. Her hands are calloused and her days are long. Yet she carries something far greater than comfort or wealth. She carries faith. Faith, my friends, does not begin in grand gestures or in great knowledge. It begins in trust, a quiet daily surrender. It begins when a mother kisses her child before going to work, praying in silence that they will have enough food that night. It begins when a man newly unemployed still finds the strength to rise and seek work again. It begins when we say, I don't know how this will turn out, but I will keep going. I will keep loving. I will keep trusting. How often we believe that faith must be strong, unshakable, full of certainty. But even the smallest mustard seed, Jesus tells us, can move mountains. Faith does not require certainty. It asks only for openness, for the courage to say yes, even when the road ahead is hidden by fog. Faith is not a shield that protects us from suffering. It is the hand we hold through the suffering, the gentle voice that says, you are not alone. Look at the poor among us. The man sleeping on the corner, wrapped in a thin blanket. The grandmother who must choose between medicine and food. The refugee mother who carries her child across oceans, not knowing what will come, but knowing she must go. These people, forgotten by the world, teach us what it means to trust in God, not with words, but with lives that say, oh, I will keep walking, I will keep hoping. And we walk with them, or do we pass by? Do we see them as burdens or as mirrors of Christ Himself? Jesus, our Lord, did not come wrapped in power or riches. He came in poverty, in vulnerability, He walked dusty roads, wept at graves, touched the leper, sat with the outcast. He trusted the Father, even as the cross loomed near. And from that cross, in agony, he still whispered trust. Into your hands I commend my spirit. Of faith, then, is not about control. It is about communion. It is about placing our fragile hearts into the heart of God again and again, even when they are breaking. Especially when they are breaking. So let us look not for perfect faith, but for faith that perseveres. Faith that feeds the hungry. Faith that forgives 70 times 7. Faith that says, I don't understand, but I still believe. Let us listen more deeply, pray more quietly, serve more freely. And when fear comes, and it will, let us not be ashamed. Let us sit with our fear and hold it tenderly, like a child in the night. Then let us offer it to the Lord and walk forward anyway. That is faith. Let us begin today with small acts of trust, a prayer whispered from a tired heart, a kindness given without reward, a moment of silence instead of despair. One step, then another, and if we fall, and we will, let us rise again, not by our strength, but by grace. Walk in faith, my friends. Walk slowly if you must, but do not stop. Do not give in to fear. God walks with you. God waits for you. God believes in you even when you struggle to believe in Him. So go. Go gently. Go humbly. But go in faith. My beloved brothers and sisters, there is a place where faith burns brightest. Not in the spotlight of power, not in the wealth of the secure, but in the quiet corners of the world where the poor dwell. Faith, in its truest form, often reveals itself not through eloquent speeches or impressive theology, but through the trembling hands of a grandmother sharing her last piece of bread. It lives in the torn shoes of a child who still smiles. It lives in the cracked voices of those who pray not because life is easy, but because hope is all they have left. I remember a visit to a simple home in a forgotten neighborhood. The walls were made of tin and cardboard. The floor was dirt. There was little to see in terms of material comfort. And yet, I saw something more radiant than gold. The woman of the house, her hands swollen from washing clothes for others, welcomed us with tea. Her eyes glowed with something deeper than joy. It was peace born of trust in God. She had nothing, yet she lacked nothing. She was poor in the eyes of the world, but rich in the eyes of heaven. Too often we overlook the poor. We pass them quickly, as though their presence is an inconvenience. We forget that they are not simply recipients of charity. They are the beating heart of the gospel. Jesus did not simply help the poor, he became poor. He was born not in a palace, but in a stable. He had no place to lay his head. He chose fishermen, not princes. He dined with the excluded, healed the leper, wept with the widow. And still today, he hides himself in those whom the world rejects. If we want to find him, we must go to the margins. We must kneel beside the forgotten and listen to their stories. There, in their suffering, in their endurance, in their quiet dignity, we will find the face of Christ. The poor do not possess a faith that is louder, but a faith that is deeper. It is a faith tested by fire, refined by hunger, polished by struggle. It is the kind of faith that knows what it means to wait in hope for a miracle, to wait in silence for justice, to wait in darkness for dawn. And even when the dawn is slow to come, their faith does not die, it deepens. This is why we must not simply serve the poor, we must learn from them. They are the ones who teach us how to lean on God when everything else falls away. They show us how to be content with little, how to remain grateful, how to believe when believing hurts. They remind us that the kingdom of God does not belong to those who have everything, but to those who have nothing except trust. And so I ask you, when was the last time you truly saw the poor? Not looked at them, but saw them, saw their beauty, their resilience, their faith. Have you allowed yourself to be changed by their witness? Let us not grow comfortable in a faith that never gets its hands dirty. Let us not seek a God who only lives in temples, but miss the God who lives under bridges, in refugee tents, in prisons and shelters and streets. Let us open our hearts, and more than that, let us walk with them. Let us share bread, yes, but also time. Let us offer money, yes, but also our presence, our compassion, our listening. Because in the poor, God waits for us. And perhaps the most powerful act of faith we can make is not to preach, but to sit beside someone who has nothing and simply be with them. To say by our presence, you matter, you are not alone, you are loved. This is the faith that transforms. This is the faith that walks in the footsteps of Jesus. And this is the faith that we are called to live. So go now with gentle hearts. Let your feet carry you to the places the world avoids. Go not to fix, but to love. Not to speak, but to listen. Go and meet Christ, waiting in the faces of the poor, and let them teach you how to walk, not in fear, but in faith. My dear brothers and sisters, in the journey of life, there are moments when we find ourselves surrounded by shadows, shadows of uncertainty, of illness, of grief, of broken relationships. These are the valleys that every human soul must cross. And in those moments, we are tempted to stop walking. We are tempted to turn inward, to shut out the light, to let fear become our guide. But it is precisely in these valleys that the call to walk in faith, not fear, becomes most urgent and most beautiful. There is a woman I once met whose face I cannot forget. She had lost her son to violence, senseless, cruel, and sudden. Her eyes were heavy, her body weary, her hands trembling from sorrow. Yet she held tightly to a small cross around her neck. I asked her how she could still believe. She answered simply, because he knows what it means to lose a son, and he's paid. That is faith, not a loud declaration, but a quiet holding on. Faith is not the absence of sorrow. It is the refusal to let sorrow define the final word. Faith is when we keep walking even while we are weeping, when we keep loving even when our hearts are broken, when we continue to hope even when the evidence suggests we should give up. Jesus never promised us a path without suffering. He never promised a life free from storms, but he did promise his presence. I am with you always, he said. Not only when we feel strong, but especially when we feel weak. Not only when we are joyful, but especially when we are afraid. How often we need to be reminded of this truth, that fear is not a sin, but allowing fear to keep us from love. That is where we must be watchful. Fear can be a shadow that distorts our vision. It tells us to protect ourselves, to retreat, to harden our hearts. But the gospel calls us in another direction. It calls us to risk love, even when it hurts. It calls us to open our doors, even when we are afraid of rejection. It calls us to forgive, even when the wound is still fresh. Jesus, in his agony in the garden, knew fear. He sweat blood. He prayed for the cup to pass. He was not untouched by the pain of being human. But even there, in that garden of trembling, he said, "Your will be done." This is the step we are called to take each day, not into safety, but into trust. Think of the refugee crossing borders with a child on her back. Think of the young man trying to leave behind a life of addiction. Think of the elderly woman in the hospital bed, alone but whispering prayers for her grandchildren. These are the saints of our time. These are the people who walk in faith, not fear. And they teach us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward anyway, carried by grace. We are not alone. The Spirit walks with us. The church walks with us. Our brothers and sisters, even the ones we overlook, walk with us. And above all, Christ walks with us, often in silence, often in disguise, but always with mercy in his step. So I invite you quietly, but with all my heart, keep walking. Even when the path is unclear, even when the night is long, even when the weight feels too heavy, keep walking. Do not let fear become your master. Let love lead. Let mercy guide. Let hope be the lamp at your feet. And when you cannot walk, when your strength is gone, allow others to carry you. This too is faith, not only the strength to carry, but the humility to be carried. Let us journey together, gently, patiently, faithfully. Let us be a church that walks with the suffering, not as spectators, but as companions. Let us not rush ahead, but walk side by side, hand in hand, heart to heart. Let us walk in faith, not fear. Let us walk with Christ, who first walked with us. And let us become pilgrims of compassion, bearing each other's burdens until every valley is lifted and every step becomes a song of hope. My dear friends, in a world so often built on appearances, on strength, on success, on self-reliance, it can feel like a weakness to ask for help. We hide our wounds behind smiles. We speak confidently, even when our hearts are trembling. We pretend to be fine, even as fear creeps quietly into the corners of our soul. But the gospel reminds us of a different truth, one that is deeply liberating and beautifully human. We are not meant to carry the burdens of life alone. We are not meant to be solitary travelers. We were created for communion, for relationship, for tenderness, for mutual support. There is a story I carry with me from a small parish in a struggling neighborhood. The electricity had gone out during a heavy storm, and the church was left in darkness. The priest lit a single candle and placed it near the altar. Slowly, parishioners began to arrive, each bringing whatever small candle or flashlight they had. One by one, the church began to glow, not with grand lighting, but with the humble light of many small flames. No single flame was enough to light the whole church, but together they chased away the darkness. This is the image of the church at its best, not a place of perfection, but a community of pilgrims, each carrying a little light. Some carry joy, others carry sorrow. Some walk steadily, others limp with pain. But we walk together, and in our walking, we find strength, not in ourselves alone, but in one another. Jesus himself did not walk alone. He was born into a family. He gathered disciples, not simply to teach them, but to be with them. In his final hours, he longed for their presence in Gethsemane. On the road to Calvary, he fell more than once, and Simon of Cyrene helped him carry the cross. Even the Son of God accepted help. He allowed himself to be ministered to. This is not weakness. This is humility. This is love. And yet, how many among us are afraid to reach out? How many of our brothers and sisters carry silent burdens? The single mother overwhelmed by exhaustion. The elderly man who hasn't spoken to anyone in days. The young girl struggling with anxiety, hiding behind a screen. The migrant worker far from home, unseen by the world. Each of them is carrying a cross, and many feel they must carry it alone. But the truth is we need each other. We are called not only to offer help, but to ask for it. To confess with courage, I am struggling. To reach out a hand, not just to lift, but to be lifted. And in doing so, we discover something beautiful, that the hands of Christ often look like the hands of our neighbor. We are not saved in isolation. We are saved in community. The church is not a museum for saints, but a field hospital for the wounded. And it is there, in our shared vulnerability, that grace flows most freely. When we walk together, when we cry together, pray together, rejoice together, the kingdom of God breaks into our midst quietly but powerfully. So invite you, let yourself be known. Do not be afraid to say, I need you. And open your heart to those around you. Look up from your own concerns and notice who is beside you. Offer your presence. Sometimes all someone needs is to know they are not alone. Let us become a people who carry each other, not out of pity, but out of love. A people who understand that mercy is not a task, but a way of life. A people who share the burden and in doing so discover joy. And so we walk together, shoulder to shoulder, step by step, bearing one another's burdens and in the process lightening our own. Let us walk in faith, not alone, but as one body, bound by compassion, led by the Spirit, and held in the arms of the one who walks beside us all. My dear brothers and sisters, there is something profoundly beautiful and deeply challenging about the words of Jesus when he tells us, do not be afraid. He does not say it once. He repeats it again and again, like a mother calming her child, like a friend who refuses to let go of your hand in the dark. Do not be afraid. And yet, how often fear shapes our decisions. How often we allow fear to close our hearts, to keep us from stepping forward in love, in truth, in mercy. Fear has a voice and it whispers lies. It tells us that we are not enough. It says, stay safe, stay quiet, stay small. It warns us not to trust, not to forgive, not to change. It convinces us that the cost of love is too high and the pain of hope too sharp. And so we settle. We close the door. We hold back. But love, real love, is always a risk. Love steps forward even when the road is uncertain. Love opens the door even when rejection may follow. Love speaks even when silence feels easier. I remember visiting a refugee camp where families had lost everything: homes, livelihoods, even loved ones. I spoke to a father who had walked for days carrying his son, his arms trembling, his back aching, his eyes tired from too many tears. "Why did you keep going?" I asked. He answered, "Because I love him. I was afraid every step, but love kept me walking." This is what love does. It keeps walking. Even when we are afraid, even when we don't know what comes next. Love does not erase fear. It transforms it. It turns trembling into tenderness. It makes courage out of compassion. It is the small act of showing up again and again for those we love, for those in need, for the stranger we do not yet know. We see this in the Gospels. Jesus, who was divine, did not shield himself from fear. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he was overwhelmed, he wept, he pleaded. And yet, he said yes. Yes to love. Yes to suffering. Yes to the cross. Not because he was fearless, but because he was faithful. Love led him. Mercy moved him. And through his yes, salvation entered our world. To walk in faith, not fear, is to say yes to love. Even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs us something, even when the world tells us to look out for ourselves. It means choosing the path of peace when anger would be easier. It means offering kindness when we are tired and worn. It means standing with the poor, the excluded, the forgotten, when doing so might make us uncomfortable or misunderstood. Let us not forget the people who love quietly, the grandmother who prays for her family each night, the teacher who stays after school to listen to a troubled child, the man who gives up a meal so someone else can eat. These are acts of love. These are victories over fear. These are seeds of the kingdom planted in ordinary soil. You may feel small, you may feel broken, but love, real love, is never wasted. Every act of compassion, every moment of courage, every time you choose mercy over judgment, this is the path of Christ. This is how we walk in faith, not fear. So let us begin again today. Let us say yes to love, not tomorrow, not when we feel ready, but now. In our weakness, in our questions, in our longing, let us love boldly, humbly, and persistently. Let us walk, even trembling, with hearts open and hands extended. And when fear comes, as it surely will, may we hear again those sacred words, "Do not be afraid, I am with you." And may we answer with quiet strength, yes, Lord, I will walk with you. My beloved brothers and sisters, we have walked together through reflection, through silence, through the gentle whispers of the Spirit who calls not to fear, but to faith. We have looked into the face of our own struggles and the struggles of others. And we have seen that even in the darkest valley, there is a light that does not go out, a light that comes from love, from mercy, from the risen Christ who walks beside us. Let us not leave this moment changed. Let us not return to the noise of the world with the same heaviness in our hearts. Let us carry with us the courage to love, the humility to ask for help, the tenderness to lift the fallen, and the strength to keep walking, even when the road is steep. Faith is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward with trust. Faith is saying yes, again and again, even when we are tired, even when we are unsure. Faith is living for others, forgiving without measure, and embracing the sacred dignity of every person we meet. So I ask you now, let us go forth as people of light. Let us bring peace where there is conflict. Let us sow kindness where there is bitterness. Let us be the quiet hope someone else is praying for. And if you fall, do not be discouraged. Get up. Begin again. The Lord never tires of picking us up. The Lord never stops walking with us. May you go with courage. May you go with compassion. May you go in peace. Good luck on the journey ahead. Thank you from the depths of my heart for listening, not only with your ears, but with your soul. And thank you for the love you carry into the world. It matters. It always matters. God bless you. And thank you.